convincing shape. Despite their failures, the appeal of the crystal skull remains a snapshot of Nazi faith in the power of the supernatural.
Crystal Skull shows us the Nazi fascination with the mystical and the occult, both as a means to create their own myths and ideologies for their own supremacy, but also as a strange fascination with the unusual, the pseudo-scientific, the potentially alien.
As the war came to a climax, no amount of magical thinking, astrological predictions, or crystal skulls could have saved Hitler and his Nazi regime from blood and ruin. As their empire collapses around them, the Nazis' exotic obsessions are finally exposed for what they were: the fantasies of dictators and zealots that were pursued in the hopes a treasure here or cult there would give them the power to control the masses and subdue their enemies. Motivated Germans are inflamed as the smoke of the sea clouds all Germany. But while Nazi occult ideas were consigned to history, their influence lives on.
I think it is very easy for us to say, look at the Nazis. They believe in these crackpot theories, and to just sort of, almost set them aside and say they're nothing like us. But I think the real question that we need to ask ourselves is, how easy is it for us to become like them?
The people at that time and today who are most obsessed are precisely the people most prone to anti-democratic and unscientific thinking now. And that's what makes Nazism so frightening.
Governments have done strange and even terrible things in the name of national interest, including scientific projects so shocking they're kept secret for decades. Now it's time to bring these strange secrets to light.
De nieuwe serie Secrets Declassified with David Duchovny. Elke maandag om 5:30 op History Channel. Een type in de wereld van mysteries, mythes en het onverklaarbare. In Search of, om met nieuw bewijs en de pakkendste theorieën. Elke vrijdag om 5:30 hier op History Channel.
Ancient Egypt, a civilization immortalized by awe-inspiring monuments and priceless treasures, ruled by pharaohs, living gods, and legendary warriors. But their wealth masks a darker truth. Power was bought with blood. They assembled the greatest armies in history, revolutionized the art of warfare, and waged spectacular battles and titanic conquests. This is the hidden face of Egyptian history. The story of the pharaohs and rulers. June 22nd, 217 BCE, 20 kilometers south of Gaza. On the sand, blood is about to flow. This desert land would become the scene of one of the greatest battles of antiquity, the Battle of Raphia. Two sworn enemies are about to clash. On one side, Pharaoh Ptolemy IV, ruler of the Latin dynasty that reigns over Egypt, with 70,000 soldiers, 5,000 horsemen, and 73 war elephants poised to fight. On the other, Antiochus III, nicknamed Antiochus the Great, ruler of the immense Seleucid Empire, with 62,000 soldiers, 6,000 horsemen, and 102 war elephants. The forces involved are extraordinary. The value of the two enemies' armies are as high as the stakes of the battle. Antiochus, Pharaoh Ptolemy's #1 enemy, posed a direct threat to Egypt's survival. Ptolemy and Antiochus were the heirs of Alexander the Great. A century earlier, their great-grandfathers, Generals Ptolemy I and Seleucus I, fought alongside him. Together, they forged one of the greatest empires in history. When Alexander the Great died, they shared his empire. Two immense and powerful forces emerge: the Latin Empire, which controlled a large part of the Mediterranean, and the Seleucid Empire, which extended from modern-day Turkey to Central Asia. But the brothers in arms soon became enemies. Their descendants continued to clash, and Ptolemy IV and Antiochus III thirsted for revenge. At the heart of the conflict, West Asia. For thousands of years, Coral Syria was highly guarded. Il faut savoir que la Coral Syria is a very rich region, essential for Egypt. It had numerous raw materials that the Ptolemies lacked, such as wood. The stakes are also commercial. Raphia lies on the route for spices, myrrh, and incense.
The area of Rafa was incredibly important to be able to trade all the resources that came from Petra and the east towards the Mediterranean Sea.
If Ptolemy loses the battle, he loses his economic resources and likely the means to pay his army, and the Ptolemaic Empire will collapse.
The threat was not just to the economy of Ptolemaic Egypt. Most importantly, the pharaoh's lands had to be protected.
For Ptolemy IV, Egypt's defense was at stake. The area of Rafa was incredibly important, considering that it was just a corridor that led to Sinai and Egypt afterwards.
Around 400 kilometers separate Raphia from the capital of Pharaoh Ptolemy, Alexandria. The Sinai is a strategic territory. It is the gateway to Egypt.
If Antiochus succeeded, he could threaten Egyptian territory and the Ptolemaic dynasty. In the event of victory, Antiochus III would unite the two greatest Hellenistic empires, the Seleucid and the Ptolemaic. He'd find himself head of the greatest power in the world, so the stakes are colossal.
Faced with Antiochus III, Pharaoh Ptolemy IV was gambling the survival of his young dynasty. He was drawing the strengths of the Egyptian Empire if he wants to become his own legend. In Raphia, two brothers face each other as enemies, heirs of the same military traditions. Since Ptolemy I, the Egyptian army was transformed into something new.
The Lagid army, that of the Ptolemies, was not an Egyptian-style army, but a Macedonian-style army. They adopted the same formation as Alexander the Great's army.
Macedonian phalanx had proved extremely efficient in fighting and in gaining success. Alexander the Great used it very efficiently in his own war all over the world.
The Macedonian phalanx dominated the battlefields of the Mediterranean and West Asia for more than 2 centuries. In the phalanx formation, the heavily equipped soldiers are organized in very close ranks, armed with large spears called sarissas. They form an impenetrable wall and perform perfectly coordinated movements. The aim? To annihilate the enemy with a massive frontal assault. These phalanxes form the central core of both armies. At Raphia, Ptolemy brought together 25,000 phalangites. Antiochus's camp had 20,000. 2 armored walls stood on the battlefield. Vincent Torres practices experimental archaeology. He dons the armor and weapons of Hellenistic soldiers in order to study them.
The phalangites' weapon of choice is the sarissa. When primed, the sarissaphoid will hold the sarissa in both hands and protect themselves with a pelt, protecting them from head to toe.
Phalangites make all the difference on the battlefield.
This sarissa has a spike. The spike is needed to dig into the ground in the event of a cavalry charge. The phalangite will be able to withstand a cavalry charge without problem. The sarissa is securely fixed and supported by fins.
This weapon is about to evolve beyond recognition.
Initially, Alexander's and his father's army had shorter sarissas. But when his father died, the Greeks and the Macedonians started fighting amongst themselves, which led to a longer sarissa. He can touch me, but I cannot touch him. So what can I do? I'm going to make my weapon longer so that I can reach him, and if possible, I'll make an even longer sarissa so that I'm out of range, I can touch him.
A competition that reached new heights at the time of Ptolemy IV and Antiochus III.
At Raphia, the spears were almost 7 meters. It's like adding this spear onto this one.
The Battle of Raphia was a battle of superlatives, a battle of military genius that pushed all limits. Never before has a pharaoh assembled such a large army. A tour de force made possible by the immeasurable legacy of the Ptolemies and the dominant position they established in the ancient world.
We are Chloe. We blossom together. Chloe, wil je wachten met ons en wachten?
Nooit meer stress bij het kopen van een tweedehands auto. Dankzij Auto Euro wordt een auto kopen eindelijk eenvoudig.